Hungry Trilobyte podcast would like to acknowledge conventions such as WhedonCon. WhedonCon is a fan-generated charity event for Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Angel, Firefly, and all Joss Whedon creations. It is scheduled for October of 2020 and is held in Los Angeles, California. Portion of the proceeds benefit the Los Angeles LGBT Center, as well as the Ron Glass Memorial Scholarship. See details at WhedonCon.com.
On mic today, we actually have two gentlemen here, Derrick Nadeau and Michael Ehmcke. Sorry.
It's all right.
You guys are
you should hear what Mike does with names.
Hey, I'm sitting right here.
I just like you guys are the talent behind We Be Geeks, which is a fantastic geek resource on the net. And I've just been introduced to your program, but we've had a lot of people on lately from podcasts and blogs, and this is something I love. I love to get into this kind of stuff as to why we sit down and write articles and text about the things we care about. So you guys want to tell us a little bit about your site?
Well, the website is just pretty much a landing page for the podcast, because in the podcasting world, it's best to have a website or even if you're using something like Podbean or Libsyn or whatnot, it's still good to have your own website to grow your identity. But we also get lately, because of this virus that shall remain nameless, as we say on our show, we have been more diligent about getting news stories up about press releases on different new toys coming out or other stuff as it happens. And actually this week I had gotten really slammed and I'm behind on it as we're recording, and that's going to be part of my weekend since I'm off the next 3 days to kind of get all that caught up. But yeah, and then also too, Derrick and I are also 2 of 3 people on another show together called Wookiee Radio, which is our Star Wars podcast.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree with you. That's something that I'm having a hard time understanding why we got away from the idea of you need to have your own website, because just trusting your content to somebody like Twitter or Facebook or Podbean or Stitcher, I mean, they're great resources, but to just give them the keys to your kingdom, I think is very short-sighted.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is, I don't want to be negative about it, so please don't take it that way. But I'm going to be blunt. I think a lot of it's laziness.
Oh yeah.
People just don't want to. I mean, I'll admit there was a time with all the shows. Part of it was laziness. Part of it was I just wasn't managing time right. What was it, Derrick? One Friday before we recorded, I said, "Hey, I finally got the shows updated on the website," and I was 12 episodes behind, 3 months behind getting them up on our main site. I also run a network, quote unquote network site. I don't like using the word network anymore. I call it a podcast collective, because that's what it is. It's a collection or a collective of podcasters with like minds, like thoughts. And I went with collective to make us stand out, separate ourselves from the rest, do something out of the box to be different. So,
in your defense, when you do something like this, operating a podcast or a blog or something of that nature, where you're making serialized content, especially for geeks, you can't do it all. There's something where you're just going to have to let something slide, and sometimes that is the website aspect of it.
Yeah,
True.
I like to liken a podcast to like playing Agricola, because if you're a fan of the board game Agricola, the game is designed so that you can't actually do everything you need to do to win. You have to pick what you're going to slide on and just hope that it pans out.
Yeah. Well, Derek also runs 2 shows of his own outside of that. That's why, like with Wookiee Radio and Weeby Geeks, well, Derek does all our show write-ups on Weeby Geeks, and I don't think I ever thank him enough. And don't say I don't thank you, because I have thanked you, but I don't think it's enough. And he and Ken alternate weeks on Wookiee Radio, because I also do a 3rd show on my own and getting ready to start a 4th show with my daughter. Yeah, I'm joining your world, Derek, with 4 shows.
Welcome.
But I'm also maintaining the websites. Derek has access to the website and knows anytime he wants to put up something review-wise or story-wise, he's more than welcome to. I mean, he's got that access. It's just I know he's been busy with his own stuff and the sites he has for his 2 shows. So I mean, it's difficult when for us at the moment we're not really getting paid, so it's still a hobby. But right. God, we're putting in the time for it like a second job, and I'm not going to speak for Derek, but I'm sure he agrees. You know, the aspiration is there to, man, I wouldn't mind pulling in enough dough where, you know, maybe I can cut back to working 4 days a week instead of 5, because I'm making enough money from the shows to supplement and be comfortable. But
that's a hell of a thought right there. But let's say you're doing 4 shows, you're not getting paid. Why do you do it? Because I think that's where the geek part comes in. Is like we got to look at the love of the material.
Well, I'm going to let Derek start on this one, on this question.
Well, since I am on 4 shows, I can tell you that obviously I must love doing podcasting, but the reason I love doing it so much is because it's fun to just have people to talk to about the stuff that you love. We all love doing that. So of course I got started with Mike, so that's what, you know, I think we've gone through a couple of different people on Weeby Geeks, and it's come down to just me and Mike, and I think we ended up being a good team on that. And with the 3 of us on Wookiee Radio, I mean, we all love Star Wars. And so then, because I enjoyed doing the podcast with Mike, you know, ever since I started listening to podcasts, I always wanted to do my own podcasts. And so I do a podcast called Keepers of the Fringe, because it started out as me and my best friend would get together each week and we just watch a movie, like a cheesy movie, just for fun. And then I said, you know, and we'd make fun of it and all, you know. So I said to him, you know what, this would make a great podcast, so we should do it as a podcast. So that's what we started doing. So we do Keepers of the Fringe, where me and my best friend talk about, you know, all kinds of movie-related topics, and then we review a cheesy movie each week. This week we're going to be reviewing a movie called Human Lanterns. So, you know, and then my 4th podcast, the New England Society of Geeks, I did that because I wanted to do a podcast where I could do. It started out as I wanted to do a podcast where I could gather together a panel of geeks to discuss a topic each week, but you know, it's hard getting people together. So I've kind of branched out into other things as well, with other topics where, like, I'm currently doing a rewatch of the entire Star Wars saga, including all cartoons and TV shows. So I do an episode of that for the podcast, and then I do other things. And that has just become, like, whenever I have a crazy idea, I put it on that podcast, and I'm like, oh, I'll do an episode about this. Or I just recently did an episode where I gathered together some people to just talk about collecting. And I don't know, I love it. I have a lot of fun doing them. I'm naturally an introvert, so podcasting kind of gives me an outlet where I feel comfortable.
You took the words right out of my mouth there. I mean, I was noticing as you were talking there that there was a trend is everything you were talking about was a matter of getting people together, hanging out with your friends, getting a chance to get a dialogue going. You're taking something that's not by its nature a social thing and making it a social thing. And in these times when we're feeling extra isolated more so than ever, that's very valuable.
All right.
And it's something that podcasting has become is just a way of reaching out and building communities of people who aren't physically close to each other, but might have a lot of really great ideas to bounce off of each other.
Oh, yeah.
So go ahead. I'm sorry, did I interrupt?
No.
Okay. Just thinking out loud here. But like you're saying, you're putting together these ideas for rewatching your shows or putting that. Are you getting feedback from your fan community as you go along doing this?
Well, that's a little trickier. we seem to have a hard time getting feedback from people for some reason, which can be a little frustrating sometimes. But
I think the show we're getting the most feedback from is Wookiee Radio.
The title alone is hilarious.
and I think we just happen to fall in the right place with that because of, I mean, a lot of the people we follow on Twitter or that account follows on Twitter definitely are other Star Wars podcasters. Why not? We all have a common goal. We all have a common thought. It's a way of brainstorming ideas without officially sitting down and going, hey, let's brainstorm ideas. I mean, I'll admit, I've seen someone go, hey, we talked about this. And like, that's kind of a cool idea. Maybe we'll throw that as a topic in our show as well. So, is it stealing? Some may say that, but we're not duplicating their conversation.
No.
We are having our own because, to be honest with you, I haven't listened to all the conversations, so I couldn't begin to duplicate exactly what they're saying. So
that's something that I think it's an argument about podcasting that I hear a lot, and it just never sticks with me. Is somebody saying your show isn't valuable because you're ripping off what this guy's doing? And my response is, if what that guy's doing is great, rip it off. I mean, if you're copying something of value, that's a good thing. There's a lot of garbage out there.
Right.
I fault the people who are making garbage. If you're making something great and somebody else happens to be doing it too, I don't see a problem with that.
Now, content's one thing. I'm not gonna go out there and steal someone's tagline, which I've had someone do to us.
Fair enough.
I'm not gonna steal tagline. I'm not gonna steal catchphrases. But I mean, if you have a good topic idea, well, of course. It's like, that's pretty cool. You got me thinking, and I even give credit. Hey, I heard this over on this show, or I read this topic idea from this person on Twitter. That would be cool to talk about. So we try and give credit when we come across stuff like that. Whereas others would go, hey, what do you guys think of this idea? And then you got 3 or 4 people doing the same idea, and there's no credit out there to anyone. So,
well, in some cases, also, I don't think it's necessarily stealing an idea if it's something, if it's especially like Star Wars related. If we're all in a community of Star Wars fans, and we want to talk about something that we heard somebody else talk about, that's just normal. That's just, we just happen to be recording ourselves talking about it.
Right. But I think it is stealing, though, like I said, if it's taglines or catchphrases or stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Now, thinking more high concept here, just basic ideas, formats. Those things are meant to be played with. They're meant to be passed around. Catchphrases, taglines, like you're saying, that's something specifically that you're branding yourself as. That would definitely be a no-no.
Right.
But like I got into podcast in 2007, 2008, and the first one I really found and sunk my teeth into was Dan Carlin's Hardcore History.
Okay.
And I love Dan Carlin. And people were always saying, well, these other history podcasts are coming out and they're ripping off Dan Carlin. Like, yeah, but he's doing a fantastic job. I mean, if you can copy that and do it a tenth as good, you're adding something better to the universe.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I agree. And sometimes something like that, imitation's flattery. It's a format that works. Okay, I want to duplicate a formula that works.
All right.
Cool, I'm okay with that. I mean, it's done all the time on TV.
Mm-hmm.
It's done all the time in film.
I was just about to use the example of we're all Star Wars geeks here. How many movies ripped off Star Wars? A lot. And a few of them were actually pretty good.
The original Battlestar Galactica was ripping off Star Wars.
Yeah.
Putting their own twist on it.
But not only that, Star Wars itself is not a completely original idea.
Of course not.
Uh-uh.
I love to sit back and just watch Star Wars, especially like the first two movies. Kind of gets away from it when Jedi comes out, but just the first two movies, liking to see where they got the inspiration from old serials and old sci-fi TV, just a really good golden age sci-fi tropes, and just look at it from that perspective. It's a lot of fun.
It's the same way with the first three films of Indiana Jones as well.
Mm-hmm.
The adventure serials.
Yeah.
So and I think that's one of the things I liked about the Michael Keaton, Tim Burton Batman, especially going into Dark Knight, Batman, then Batman Returns. Even though each film is a standalone, it's also it's almost a serial with the way he was going with it.
Okay.
I mean, it kind of, and I was enjoying, and around that time, I remember, it was still, I don't remember which film, maybe it was Batman Forever was coming out, and either Sci-Fi or Comedy Central was showing the old original Batman movie serials from 42 and 46, or 42 and 48, I think it was.
I actually think it was 42 and 45, because there was one that was post-war, I believe.
Yeah, I think that was 46. It's either 46 or 48.
Yeah, I could look it up,
which definitely would not fly today because the villain is Asian descent, and at the time, but it was justified at the time of the film was made. That's a snapshot of what society was back then. And look at it for them. I mean, I think it's stupid putting a disclaimer now in front of Gone with the Wind. Oh, this was because of when the times of yada yada. I'm like, if you know your history, and everyone should, going to school, except younger kids who haven't hit that part yet, then you should know.
But it's not. You can't rely on that because history is not taught the same everywhere, and it's not always taught well.
True.
It's not.
I think to your point, Michael, even if what I'm seeing in that movie is, and I'm not the biggest Gone with the Wind fan, so that's I have no dog in that fight. But even if I'm looking at something and I'm seeing something that's very tasteless and offensive based on its historical perspective, and if I'm like, wow, I don't like that at all, the fact that it's capturing that moment in time, even in a negative sense, I think is valuable because, like, okay, these people didn't know that somebody would look back at them 70 years later and say, "Oh, no, that's not okay." They thought they were being sincere in making this, and we should grab that and study it rather than make excuses for it.
If you philosophy is the more you tend to forget about your past or write it off, the more likely you are to be doomed to repeat it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And also, I don't ever forget about my fat. So I just wanted to point that out.
I'm still not calling you Zod.
You will.
To be fair, he didn't specify he was talking to you. I've had a couple extra cheeseburgers lately, so.
Oh. I'm just saying that's one thing you don't forget about.
But no, it's like that's one of the reasons I love watching old movies is because sometimes you're just going to see a radically different perspective than what you're used to, and that's life.
Yeah.
I think that's also the beauty of art and movies and things too, is seeing something that you yourself might not have experienced or know about necessarily.
I guess good.
I was gonna say I think I agree. Yeah, for sure.
But you're saying you saw Batman as a serial, like an actual the 1989 movie as a serial?
I think the way Burton was heading with it kind of had a serial vibe to it that, you know, if his third film actually got made and he was kept on, it would have been. I think we would have seen more of a serial-esque vibe to it, but it didn't get that far because the Warner Brothers decided to go a completely different direction. And then when Bruckheimer tried to copy it, no, it wasn't Bruckheimer. Schumacher tried to copy it. He couldn't do it. It wasn't his type of film to copy. So, but no, I think it was very, very serial-esque. Because I mean, the first movie definitely had that. Okay, here's a chapter 1, 2, and 3 vibe to it.
And see, at full disclosure, I liked the first movie. I'm not enamored with it like many of the people in my age group are. I think it's a great movie. I don't think it's the gold standard. So look at it.
I agree with you. I feel it's a little dated now, but
it is.
It's definitely not a gold standard film, but to me, I think of all the Batman movies that have been released in the theater in my lifetime, and this is post Adam West, the Batman 66 film. Keaton's that original Batman, I feel, is the best. I would go second, probably the second Nolan movie, because what he did with Joker was incredible as well with Heath Ledger.
Yeah, see, I would that one's my favorite. That one's definitely my favorite.
But I'm not a fan of the Nolan verse. I mean, he did some great things. Bringing Scarecrow in was great. New villain. His take on Joker was great.
The first two.
Yeah.
The third one though was.
As much as I love the Riddler, and Derek will attest, I love the Riddler. I enjoy seeing him on the big screen. But God, that movie was bad. Schumacher let Jim Carrey go too over the top and didn't rein him in enough.
At that point in time, I was the line I was always hearing was that one does not direct Jim Carrey. One points the camera at him and lets him do his thing. I don't know if anybody had actually tried to rein him in, if they would have been successful. I think in years after that, that changed a bit. But at that point in time, it was like Jim Carrey is Jim Carrey, and you either take it or leave it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I like Batman Forever, actually. I mean, there's a couple of niggling points I have on it, but I think it was a little closer to what I was hoping to see from Batman Returns, which I think is my least favorite Batman film. I'll be honest with you.
Really interesting.
I love DeVito's Penguin.
Yeah.
My issue with Penguin in that was I didn't mind the mannerisms. I didn't mind like him sitting there eating a raw fish and all that. That grabbing it and just going right into town. I think for me, it was the choice and direction with the makeup on him. The face didn't bother me, but it was making him. I understand they tried to make him look like more like a penguin. The hands didn't bother me, but I think he was too beach ballish. Look wise.
Yeah.
And that bothered me. You gave us a Burgess Meredith style penguin, but the longer nose, the flipper type hand, the same attitude that DeVito brought to it, but still more constantly in a tux, more prim and proper. Even the show Gotham went more that direction.
Right.
I think I would have been okay with DeVito's Penguin. It's just the longer nose, cool. He looks like a bird, no big deal. But it was the beach ball look that was the turn off. That one thing is like, yeah, but no. It's like it's like being a non-smoker, asking a girl out and getting ready to kiss her, and she lights up a cigarette. No. For me,
that is a weird analogy.
Yeah, I didn't quite see that one coming, but
I get it. But
now we're all three of us are thinking about kissing Danny DeVito. You realize that? Oh, it's just me. Okay.
Hey,
so
if it pays the bills.
Well, I've thought of it before, so it's nothing new for me. But
I'm not really a fan of any of the things you mentioned. The beach ball, the nose, the flippers. It was all off. But what the poison pill for me was that so many people are like, it was gothic, it was dark, it was a great take on Batman. And I'm looking at this thinking, yes, but if you want an authentic Batman, the Penguin is a joke villain. The Penguin is a lighthearted villain in between the serious villain stories. And that they made him the most grisly, disgusting villain there was. That's not authentic at all. That's a complete, I don't want to say betrayal of the character, but it's not a take I care for at all. And that ruined it for me. On top of every other thing, which I didn't really care for either.
I mean, they could have lightened up the actual lighting to make it a little lighter, even though it's a Christmas movie. Because Penguin isn't that dark, as you said.
Yeah.
Maybe that would have helped too. I mean, Joe, the first one I thought look-wise could have gone a hair darker. Or when I thought they could, they did, because they did most of the action at night, not during the day. Because it seems like that's when Joker comes out to play, is at night. That's when Batman's coming after him at night. But when they did the daytime stuff, I mean, it was great. It looked like, okay, Gotham could be a mix of New York and Seattle. There's bad weather there all the time. It's constantly cloudy. This is why the city's in the mood that the city's in. Cool. But I don't think we saw enough daytime stuff in Batman Returns, and I think that made it a struggle as well.
I can agree there too. And to contrast it, I know saying it's my least favorite Batman movie is putting me out on a ledge here, but I will say, number one, I haven't seen Justice League yet, so I can't count that.
Oh.
And Batman and Robin, as terrible of a movie as it is, there are days I will just want to watch something silly with a beer, and that is not a terrible choice to make. It's one of those movies you can be in the mood for it. And
not
at least
me.
it's Silverstone. So.
Not me.
Okay, fair
that movie. That movie offended me on so many levels that I cannot ever watch it again.
Well, with me being a hockey player or trying to get back onto the ice, oh, okay, we're going to freeze the ground. Everyone's going to be skating around. You see everyone initially. So you know they're supposed to be on ice. But you watch everyone skating around. They're not on ice skates. They're on rollerblades. And I was like, but all the still shots, they're wearing, like with Batman and Robin initially, you see hockey skates, or you see steel blades come out. Then they start moving, and everyone's on blades. Like, all right, no.
Now, I mean, you're saying that movie hurt you and offended you. I blame that movie for damage to my kidneys because I saw it in the theater the weekend it opened, and I got the giant 40-ounce soda with me there, and I kept saying, I'm not going to take a bathroom break because it has to be getting good soon. I don't want to miss the part where it actually gets good, and it never did. And, yeah, my kidneys were not the same afterward.
Your kidneys were looking at you going, freeze.
Yes.
Yeah, just what they did to Bane and I liked the idea of Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze, but then the dialogue was so
great. The costume was great. I think that was Schumacher just getting trying to go. He couldn't pull off the Tim Burton, so he was trying to go more towards a Batman 66 vibe with it, and he still couldn't pull it off.
And then Uma Thurman was good.
Yeah.
But that, I won't get into that detail. But I don't know. And then even Alicia
I have no clue what you're talking about.
Even Alicia Silverstone was not great, and
well, they changed the whole Batgirl character with her.
That bugged me a lot.
It's not Barbara Gordon.
Yeah.
It's a whole new person.
Right.
And I didn't understand what the point of that was.
Mm-hmm. And then that whole line at the end. Who are you?
It's me, Barbara, Bruce.
No.
The world's greatest detective at work here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was horrible.
I'm not putting it on a high pedestal, but I do put it a notch above Batman Returns. Just because I can occasionally be talked into watching it out of pure silliness.
I will say the one thing about that movie is I don't think George Clooney was horrible. I think maybe if he had gotten a better chance at a better movie, maybe he could have been better. So I don't blame everything on George Clooney.
No, not at all.
Necessarily.
His Batman was a bit nipply.
I'm not even going to get into that. But I would like to have seen what he could have done with an actual decent as Batman.
Yeah, I thought Clooney's Batman was better than Kilmer. I thought Kilmer was the better Bruce Wayne.
I would agree with that.
But Keaton was perfect both ways. I love Keaton's Bruce. I love Keaton's Bats. I mean, they were both good. For me,
I loved
though,
it. I really liked his Bruce Wayne. His Batman was okay for me.
For me though, if I'm going to channel stop, I'll channel stop on Batman Forever before I channel stop Batman and Robin, and that's only because of Riddler. I have a love for the Riddler.
What was your take on Two-Face in that one?
Confusing, because we get in the first two films Harvey Dent's Billy D. Williams.
Mm-hmm.
Now all of a sudden, Harvey Dent gets acid thrown on his face, becomes Two-Face, and it's Tommy Lee Jones. It's like, wait, how did it go from Billy D. Williams to Tommy Lee Jones? And I think making the casting of originally of Harvey Dent as Billy D. Williams, I almost felt that we were never going to see a Two-Face, and I was almost okay with that.
Yeah.
And I would have thought, okay, we're going to write Billy D. Williams out of this by doing the acid bit, and then that's going to just write him off, and he goes into Arkham because he's gone insane because of it. And we may see the Two-Face character appear briefly there. Not to knock Billy D. Williams, but I don't see him in a Two-Face role. His Dent was fine. Two-Face, I just didn't see it with him.
Well, from what I've heard, he was actually contracted to play the character in all the movies, including if and when he was turned into Two-Face, and they ended up canceling that contract just to get Jim Carrey. Not Tommy Lee Jones. I'm sorry, Tommy Lee Jones.
Well, part of it was too. Well, the contract was broken as soon as they let go of Tim Burton.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, because they wanted to keep Keaton, and Keaton's like, no. So he purposely, in negotiations, overpriced himself so they wouldn't bring him back because he wanted to keep. He felt Tim Burton was the better choice.
Well, he was right.
Very much so.
And it's almost like that movie has cursed later efforts as well, because from what I just discovered this week, apparently there was an idea pitched to DC in 2015 to do a comic book based on the universe created by the 1989 movie that would have had Billy D. Williams, in comic book form as Two-Face, and a continuation with the Robin character. And they decided, no, we should make Batman versus Superman instead. So the right people are definitely in charge up there.
Oof. Yeah.
Hey, Derek, I would say this. Our thoughts on all that would be best described as. Is that best put?
Sure.
I brought this up on the very first episode of the show. I said I saw the movie and I had feelings.
Don't run away from those feelings. Well, actually, in this case, you may want to run away from those feelings.
So, guys, what are your plans for the Wookiee Radio in the near future?
We are
more Wookiees.
Yeah, we have quite a few other podcasters coming on the show because we've been doing that, especially. Well, we kind of started it before the virus that shall remain nameless, as a way of just kind of helping grow our audience and exposing them to other podcasters. and hopefully having those podcasters share us with their listeners and their audience.
That has really grown from what we initially had just planned.
Yeah. It's like the first time I put it out, there was quite a few people. Yeah, I would love to come on. Second time I put it out, oh my God, the response was insane.
Mm.
I mean, it took me a while to get people the first time. The second time I was like, guys, we are, what was it? End of June? I'm like, we're booked through mid-August with guests.
Well, congratulations.
So, I mean, with that, I mean, that whole concept has been great because we also, as you'll experience, because you're coming on the show on August 5th,
Looking forward to it.
recording. We do a game that's our icebreaker called Smuggler's Feud.
Yeah.
And it's based on loosely based on
Loosely.
very loosely based. So
On
so
Star
loo-
Wars.
so loosely based on Family Feud that Jabba the Hutt, that Carrie Fisher couldn't stay in her metal bikini consistently while on set. Oh wait, she had that problem anyway. I have both for the Marvel Family Feud game and the Star Wars Family Feud game, and we have turned that into, when we have other podcasters on, a break the ice type moment and do a competition between podcasters.
Interesting.
Between us and another show, and I think it's a bit that everyone has fun with.
Sure.
Okay. The other shows have been having fun with it.
I kid.
I'm sitting right here. So yeah, I mean it's been pretty cool. We also have coming up near the end of August. I'm in the process of locking him in, the audio producer for the Dr. Aphra audiobook, be coming on to talk about the production of the Dr. Aphra book, because it's done like almost like a radio drama, the way it's told, instead of the standard smugglers need to worry about this and that. It's scripted out, and it's a great book. It really is.
Awesome. Well, everything you guys are talking about, I'm going to make sure goes into the show notes for this episode on my website, aaronbossick.com. So if somebody's going to look at some other of your shows, I'll make sure that all that gets in there. But in the meantime, I know it's getting late on both your time zone and mine, so I want to wrap this up while we can. Where can people check out your stuff? Any links you want to throw out there? Twitter feeds?
Derek, you start up.
I'm not ready. Well, you can, if you want to check out my New England Society of Geeks podcast, you can do that by going to nesofg.com. And of course, you can also find me on Twitter at NESOG podcast for that one. And you can also find me on Instagram, and that is under NESOG pod. And I also have a New England Society of Geeks Facebook page. And for my other podcast, Keepers of the Fringe, you can find me on the Facebook, Keepers of the Fringe Facebook page, Keepers of the Fringe on Instagram, Keepers of the Fringe on Twitter. Right. And actually, Twitter is at KOTFR. And you can just follow me regularly on Twitter at NES of Geek.
All right,
I
then.
think that covers everything.
Well, with Weeby Geeks, you can find Weeby Geeks at weebygeeks.net, Weeby Geeks on Twitter and Instagram, Mighty Marvel Geeks, mightymarvelgeeks.net, at Marvel Geeks on Twitter and Mighty Marvel Geeks on Instagram. Wookiee Radio is Wookiee Radio in both places and WookieeRadio.net. Also, too, I like to put out there, go to podcastawards.com. Mighty Marvel Geeks and Wookiee Radio are up for nomination in this year's awards. You have till July. Thanks. You have till July 31st to vote. Mighty Marvel Geeks you can find in the entertainment category, and Wookiee Radio in TV and film. So please go vote and help us make it to the finals, to the next round of judging.
Awesome, awesome.
Oh, and just one more quick thing. You can also find all of our podcasts, particularly my two, on weebygeekspc.com. That's the home of the collective.
Good catch on plugging the collective.
Good job. Well, guys, thank you so much for getting together here. I really had a good time, and I'm looking forward to being on your show real soon.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you. Yeah, and thanks for joining us.
Awesome, awesome. Talk to you soon.